We ask thee to grant blessings upon thy servants, our community leaders, our county mayor, commissioners, especially Scott Johnson, who's having surgery either today or tomorrow. Be with him and his family. Also, consider our city mayors, newly elected, and the councilmen that are elected. Bless us with all of us with the spirit of wisdom, goodness, and truth. May law and order, justice, and peace prevail. Defend our liberties, preserve our unity, and guide our community. In honor of thy holy name. Amen. Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of October 18th, 2022 rules and legislative committee minutes. Who will approve? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The second item is consideration of placing the November 8th, 2022 commission minutes on the December 13th, 2022 county commission meeting agenda.
Make a motion to place those on the agenda without a recommendation.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Next item, consideration of placing the notary applicants on the December 13th, 2022 county commission agenda as requested by County Clerk Donna Thomas. Who will approve? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The veterans report is closed. In October, there were 66 veterans that were transported to the VA hospitals, and 68 veterans came by the office. And I believe it was up. I believe we transported 6 more, and there were about 10 more veterans that came by the office. Mike, how was the Veterans Day Parade? Was it?
It went.
Okay, yeah. It was Friday.
It went.
It seemed like it was early in the week, wasn't it? How did it go?
It was Saturday.
Saturday?
Yes,
Okay.
Saturday. It went well. I mean, for the cold and the rumor that it was canceled, other than that, it went pretty well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for all the work you're doing with our veterans. You know, the thing about it is, if it weren't for you guys, I don't care, it's not the preachers, it's not the politicians, it's not the judges, it's the men and women who put that uniform on yesterday, today, and tomorrow to preserve our very rights that we have in here today. Every single one of us owe them, every single one of them a debt of gratitude. So on our behalf, thank you for what you're doing to help our veterans and supporting our veterans.
Just to add one more.
Second that.
All in favor? No. Other than that, in first week in February, I'm going to Washington, D.C. I've become a national advocate for the Vietnam veterans and their records. So I'm working on that. I've got to meet with some committee over there. I don't know who I'm meeting with. But anyway, I'm going to be able to talk to them about their records because I've noticed it and I brought it up in the state training. And so I'm going to work on that nationwide.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the veterans report?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, agricultural board, they have to meet this.
We're gonna meet Monday. We had 1 or 2 illness, and we had one of our members had a family member pass away, and I think it was cold or smoking, to be honest with you, like today, not enough more. But we do have the bid out, Mr. Daniel put out, I believe Mayor may touch on this as well. We've got that bid out for the restrooms now. So it went out up for bid, so we're all good to go on getting that restroom out there, which is gonna be.
Far as I know,
Yeah, as far as I know, yes. And the lighting in the building too. The big thing is we got out for bid for the restaurant. And that's gonna help the facility, the fair, and everybody.
Okay, the next item is community clinic, the report's in our packet. Again, the medical side of it, there were 75 patients seen. Dr. Lula and Dr. Talbot did most of that volunteer work. And then, I think on the dental side of it, there were only, I think, 9 dental clinics. I believe there was 9, and Dr. Craven did most of the volunteer work this month. It looks like they're doing some free lung scans provided for children. And it was done through the Memorial Hospital in Chattanooga, and then also free mammograms provided by Ascension, St. Thomas, and the Susan B. Goldman Foundation in Nashville. So it looks like there's some other services that I've not seen listed before that are they're being provided, which that's great. The more services we can have for these people, the better off we are.
And you know, for the new people who are elected freshmen, this is really something you need to look at, because these guys, they do a tremendous job. They take people who have insurance, but the family doesn't have coverage. And these people come there, and it really helps the middle class people, it helps people who are struggling, and they're actually working out here. So we support them every way we can. Trudy Lusk is just a tremendous person, and the people, they've got the people from Harry, those doctors that bring down, unbelievable, they're so good at helping. So this is a really good cause, and if you want to get behind something, this is really something to get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we do, that's just for our information, but we do need to report on it and nice job that you're doing, we appreciate what you're doing for our community. Okay, under new business, standing committee membership and annual review, which just to be put on, as last year, we're gonna read it. The Rules Legislative Committee, acting as a nominating committee, shall submit nominations for the standing committee positions to the Board of Commissioners based partially on seniority and individual preference. All standing committees of the Board of Commissioners shall be elected annually by the majority of the Board of Commissioners at the annual term of the board. Nominations are requested by December 20th of the next meeting. Normally, of course, we've never elected them like we have this year after the election, so I don't know how important this is. I'd say most everybody's in the position they're gonna want to stay in. I don't know. We'll find out in December. But as I said, prior years, and as I said before, we hadn't done it quite that way. So this was very important, because this is where a lot of stuff will take place normally. But whatever, it's still on there. It's still, if you have any requests, any changes, I guess we have left it to you. Someone, I guess, that wants to switch, but it is requested that you make a request to this committee, and then we'll put it on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like, at the first of the year, after we get the standing committees done and so forth, and you had said something about it before, but I'd like to open up the bylaws to get all of that very clarified, so that the next election, we don't run into this. And plus, Ginger Bobo has a couple of things that she thinks needs to be changed that clarify a few other things, doesn't have anything to do with much, but, so it's not just the one thing, we've got 3 or 4 things that need to be
Okay.
addressed.
If Ginger wants to, or if you can get what she wants to do,
Well, what mine and her suggestion was that at the first of the year, that we have a study session, anybody wants to come, anybody wants to listen, to what needs changing, and what her wording is on it, and then bring it before we like.
I think we talked about that the first of the year, we will.
So just keep that in mind, I'll bring that up probably January, February, to get that done for spring.
that would be fine. So we'll look at the bylaws and the agenda. Okay, the next item is rezoning request. It's placed on the Rules Legislative Committee agenda by the Planning Commission with a favorable recommendation of Wayne Sullivan, Chief Manager of JDSP LLC, is seeking to have map 52, parcel 022.02, which is approximately 1.800 acres, at 1170 Bell Buckle Ward Trace at the corner of Fairfield Pike, rezoned from A1 to C1. The proposed use will be for a convenience store. Nearby uses include Cascade School across the street. Bedford County EMA has a building less than 300 feet away on Fairfield Pike, and a preschool. And inform that a convenience market is located 2 parcels south on the Bell Buckle Ward Trace Road. The staff, I guess that's a planning committee, the staff, I've never seen the staff, I said it's a planning committee, isn't it?
Yes.
The planning committee has no objection.
Look, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I told you wrong, that would be the staff, and the planning committee has no objections. I think is what they're saying, so.
So it hadn't cleared up full.
It came from the planning
It
committee.
came from planning commission.
Planning but the staff is just telling me they don't have any reservations, because it's being sent up by the planning commission.
If I remember, it was unanimous.
Yes.
What One other thing,
Unfavorable?
No, it's favorable.
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 Mr. Chairman, one other thing on that, he's gonna, because there was a lot of, discussion about just that congestion at that four-way stop. He and the state engineers are gonna get together for cutting off some of that frontage of the property and doing some stuff right in there. And he's very willing to do whatever the state asks him to do.
Mr.
We
Chairman, say
have
aye.
a map in here, but I didn't have one of these.
Yes,
This is in your district, Mr. Maddox, Mr. Hooker, you're familiar with this rezoning request, are you okay?
I have not, this is the first I've heard of it, I did not get any, I wasn't at the planning commission, but I do know that in that area, we get a ton of complaints from the congestion at Cascade School. From about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, till about roughly 3 o'clock, and then early in the morning from roughly 7:30 till 8 o'clock. It is very difficult to get through there. I would be very cautious in adding a lot there, until we get a full study, done in that area, because they've got to do something with the traffic because it's nearly impassable those times during the day.
Yeah, and I agree. This is the first I've heard of it as well, but when I realized where it was, I echo Commissioner Hooker's sentiment. That's a high traffic area, so I would definitely appreciate a study like you mentioned.
Well, the planning commission's already studied, the planning commission's recommended it, and the staff doesn't have any objections, and so now it's up to us to recommend something to the full commission. So it's your district, what is your opinion on what we should do?
So number one, I'd like to see that study.
I think I'd like to see it postponed until we can get a little bit more information if possible. I don't wanna, I need more information before I can make a proper recommendation.
100% agree.
Mr. Chairman, then can we defer this for 30 days? Would that be a problem with the planning commission?
That makes, and I'm not one way or the other, it makes me nervous because in the zoning request, you're supposed to act on within a certain period of time. So I would just send it to the commission with no recommendation or
Okay.
something. And
That
then,
gives
and then
you,
you all get with Chris and see
gives you
what
30
those
days.
days laid out.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't have anything included in here to see.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion, we send it to the full commission without a recommendation.
I second. Okay, is there any other discussion? I agree with that, and then the commission can decide what
That doesn't put us in,
Yes.
it makes me nervous.
Well, yeah, no, I think we're doing right by putting it on there and letting it be discussed with everybody.
And if we can find any information to give you in advance, we'll do it. I'll meet with Chris too and see. I don't think that information's in my office. But if it is, we'll get it to you and we'll see what we can do to get you that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second without, yes.
But didn't Mark Clanton and the state do a study on traffic several years ago? I don't know if Chad was there or not. That might be helpful for you all.
Several years.
High school. They were at the high school.
That's a long time.
And they were looking about a roundabout not too long ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, there might be some information out there that, I don't know.
It was a big fiasco
Yeah.
with the traffic.
Yes.
It's still.
It wasn't, yeah.
High school.
So, I mean, if, postponing this for 30 days, is that off the table?
Yes,
Now, we're gonna put the commission, then the commission can do it.
in 30 days. That gives you 30 days to take a look at it.
It's pretty appropriate for this committee to go and push it to the commission, and then it's sorted out there, where everybody has a say-so. That's pretty normal.
I think particularly on this kind of issue, if I can speak, and I think Linda can clear this up, but there's some rules about this zoning planning stuff. If they don't act in so many days by default, they get it.
So you
So
wanna be
we don't,
careful.
and I'm not sure that's the case here, but I think that's what's making people pause or hesitate with the conversation, not that we think we have a piece of information you don't have. I don't have it, but I'm pretty sure that you could wind up by default then getting it if we were to delay it too much.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we'll make sure and do our research and bring good information back to the commission here in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and Chris can give us maybe some more information.
And Mark Clanton might be, I know he's looked at it and had a whole bunch of suggestions of how to set the store back further than it was so that easier turn in and widen and that. But I don't have those with me.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, right? Is there any more discussion? Any question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, next is, number 9, this is another rezoning request, placed on the Rose Legislative Committee agenda by Planning Commission with an unfavorable recommendation. Joseph Fulton is seeking to have map 42 parcel 037.03, which is approximately 1.01 acres, 30, 34, Highway 41A North, rezoned from A1 to C1. Proposed use will be for a convenience store, which also plans to serve hot food. The property has been a farmer's market, the grandfathered convenience market for fuel, a bar at one point, but its lack of having any light, so uses for more than 36 months has resulted in its losing its grandfather. There is also a grandfather mini storage facility neighboring the property to the west. Nearby uses are predominantly agricultural and light residential. The staff has no particular objections to the historical commercial uses. However, from a zoning perspective, rezoning parcel A will be considered spot zoning, as there are no light uses or zoning parcels nearby.
Again, that's in your district, Mr. Booker.
No,
No.
that's usable.
It was
Okay, all right, and
It was
it's
the
in-
empty bottle too, on Unionville Highway.
That's one down from Old Big Thompson Park.
Yeah, right.
Oh, right next to Old
Yeah,
Virginia.
right past Longview
Okay,
there.
so
That's-
your suggestion, comments, Mr. Thompson?
That's a tough call because he was grandfathered in commercial, and he's still, even though he hadn't actively been commercial usage, it's still a commercial building sitting there for usage for commercial, so that's a tough call. I understand the spot zoning and things like that, but still, it's gonna be, it should be a commercial building because that's what.
It probably make it look better than it is now.
Yeah, exactly. But
Well, the planning commission.
There's nothing in a reachable range of it that's commercial now. That's why I think Chris has got in there the spot zoning. So we're trying to be as careful as we can.
But if they don't build something there, what would happen to the property problem stay as is, do you think?
sure, yeah, they're not gonna do anything if they can't do
They
commercial.
can build a house.
Yeah, they can tear it down or something. Who knows?
Now, there's storage buildings on the property too, right?
Like I say.
Mini storage.
Yeah.
Go ahead and fix the fence. I go by there pretty often, but I can't say that. One time I thought they fixed the fence around the storage facility and cleaned up down there.
They did, but they were getting a lot of the empty bottle patrons over toward there. They tried to do that separate so they wouldn't be over there in those buildings, so. I believe commercial would be better than empty bottle, but, you know,
Mr. Chairman, what we want to avoid is any spot zoning issues. But what we're hearing is that there is opportunity managers, economic development out there that will decrease the likelihood of services to that community. So I think that is our backdrop of where we should send it up to the commission. But since it's been sent up with an unfavorable recommendation, I think that we perhaps need to send it up with no recommendation, if everyone is agreeing on
I
that.
second.
Yeah, I agree.
And I will make a motion, we send it to the full commission with no recommendation.
He usually states in the minutes that it came with no recommendation, but an unfavorable, or whatever the planning commission recommends.
Yeah, it's on there.
Right.
It's on
Yeah, it's on there. Yeah, it was unfavorable unanimous.
Commissioner, you
I
second?
second it, yes.
Okay, is there any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we have, the ethics policy has, is, again, we had it in our packet, from last Tuesday. Read through it, there's still quite a bit going on there. I'm trying to look up the other one, and personally, I'd like to look at that a little bit longer. I couldn't find my other one from when it was first established, and I looked for it, and I couldn't, I got it somewhere, but it's quite a bit. I don't know exactly what has been changed and what hadn't been changed. And, CTAS, I didn't, know that he, I don't know how this came about.
If you're okay with me speaking, I'll tell you
Yes.
what. The state updated their ethics policy. We were riding under the umbrella of the current state ethics policy. They, actually, Shanna through HR had caught some things that we thought the language might be conflicting We talked with CTAS, they agreed with that, but needed to make some corrections at the state level to adopt the standard policy. This is what this is. Now, the county, and she's here, she can answer any questions you got. My understanding is the county wants to tweak this policy, you can, but it's gonna require a different act than if you just accept the state. This is the state's standard. If we just want to stay with the state standard, that's what this is, but studying it another month makes a lot of sense. But I've got her here if you wanna ask anything tonight, and we can have her here next month if you want to just not get into that tonight, but just take it and study it. But the only things that are changed from what's in there is what the state did. The county did not lean in on this issue.
Chairman Barrett, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Okay, so to answer your question, in the third whereas clause, the recent changes were specifically to the provision of the financial system of 81. They wanted to update the language for the purchasing procurement department, specific to what employees in that department were permissible to do. They wanted to clean that language up. And the other is not even applicable to us, it's purchasing law of 1957. You all, as a legislative body, adopted your ethics policy when it became law in 2006, and it was the ethics policy language approved by the state attorneys at the state comptroller's office, and it was approved by the General Assembly. There's a TCA statute separate that says CTAS has a responsibility to send any update to the language out to all counties. You all can choose to adopt it as is, which just requires an acknowledgement and to be spread across the minutes. And then that requires Donna Thomas as your county clerk to send it back to the State Ethics Commission to let them know that we're not on the 06 policy anymore, we're on the 2022 version. But the changes specifically for this had to do with the finance department and the purchasing department solely, and that's what this attachment is.
And this puts us in compliance with the
Yes,
state
this puts-
statute.
This
with
puts you
specifically
updated because this entire ethics policy that Commissioner Vera is referencing was approved by the state attorneys, and it was approved at the General Assembly by the state Senate and the House of Representatives. And then it was sent back to all counties to be adopted. If you all wanted to go through, like Mayor Graham said, and study it, and you wanted to change anything about it, the first time you change any word in here, that's fine, that's the will of the commission, but it's gonna require more than just an acknowledgement and a spread across the minutes. But we
So,
will do what you
And
tell
if I
us
could
to
say
do.
that, on that note, what the state is saying to us, this is the minimum standard. If you would
Yes.
like to be more restrictive, you
Mhm.
can do that, but you can't be less restrictive, and that's why we've got to update to acknowledge what the current minimal state standard for ethics is, which is
And I
this
would-
one.
And I would point out your very last clause of your ethics policy on the very back, the applicable state law, it's your safe harbor, Chairman Fair. It talks about, in addition to the ethical principles set out in the Code of Ethics, state law provides framework for behavior of officials and applicable employees, and it puts it back on those officials and the employees to know what the state law is outside of what's been referenced in the purchasing and in requirements. And then upon approval, which is what Commissioner Yaki wanted when I first came on board, was when I do the onboardings with all employees, that they have a signed acknowledgement in their personnel file.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it looks like if we open this up, we're gonna have, this will be a long protracted discussion.
We got time.
Okay.
I certainly want to study it.
Okay.
I don't know how long it's gonna be, but I think we need to look at it.
Are we
This
under a
was-
timeframe to adopt it?
We're not under a timeframe, you can stay under the 06,
Okay.
but specifically what you're gonna find when you compare the two documents is the changes are specific only to the purchasing section of the 81 Act, and then the 57 Act, which still is in there. That's why that language remains in the policy before you, even though it's not applicable to us, I can't pull that out without
We
you
were
all.
probably on 57 prior to 81.
I don't believe, no,
No,
I don't
we're
believe
in
you
general
are.
General-
No, there's just some counties that still operate under it,
Okay.
but because it's a 30,000 foot, but what I would reference is, you walk, and your local attorney has already looked at it as well, so this has been studied by many attorneys.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, we'll roll this to 30 days and have a chance for all of us to look at it, make some comments, and a little further discussion, and get some input if we need to do anything else.
You said defer 1 month back to this meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
yes, it'll stay in committee for 1 month. Is there a second to the motion? Second. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, of course, I think you decided that, Mr. Dickey County Powers Act resolution is still on hold, we're still waiting to see. Has that been rescheduled yet? Do
That
you know?
workshop is scheduled for this month. I did not bring my calendar.
Okay, but let us know.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I got an email
Yeah,
out.
we're waiting for that. I think the last time this body touched this issue, they were gonna, because there was a workshop coming, we wanted to delay
Yeah,
what you
have.
decide
That's why I
to
want to
do.
know when the workshop was.
I think, do we have?
But when you find out, let us know, so.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
I will send a
Certainly
blank
go.
email.
And then we can take action. But I would like to study to hear something from you.
I believe wholeheartedly.
See that. Okay, that'll be fine. So we don't need to do anything, but we need to just know when that training
I
is.
will have that in a county email from the mayor tonight, and he can.
Yeah,
he
I'll
can
send it out.
distribute to every member of the commission.
Okay, that's great.
And the planning
And
commission.
another thing we talked about last time, Commissioner Hooker, and actually the homeless task force, what's the status on that real quickly? We'll hold it like it is, but you can bring us up to date on that.
Yes, sir. I'm working on our side. I have sent that and met with the city, the new city manager. He was gonna be bringing that up to the city council for their input on their side. I'm still waiting on word back from him to be able to finalize that piece of it. And then when I get that all together, I'll bring it back to this body so y'all know exactly where we're at.
Thank you. Thank you. And Commissioner Anderson wants to discuss
Well, I'm just gonna hand out information for everybody, y'all pass these down. This is a resolution that Commissioner Booker and I have been working on about possibly rezoning, zoning resolution for Bedford County, changing some things where we don't have that situation we had out Longview Road. But all I want you to do is review it for a month, and we'll talk about it next month. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Can I add something to that, might help her? Monday night at 7, and I was gonna ask you under announcements, but since we brought this up. Planning Commission is gonna have a study session, to look at not just the regular subdivisions, but HUD's use of the urban growth boundary as density, and as you come out the county, toward the end, less dense, and several other things, so that's where it's got to start, you know, just a reminder.
where
that-
is it and what time?
Just a reminder, the commission has always got to send stuff to the planning commission to do and then back to y'all. It'll be here at 7 o'clock. So, I'm not sure what Bill's resolution says, but
Let's just,
we've got a study session starting, and I entreat everybody to come and have your input.
Is it
because
Monday?
7 o'clock here,
Monday.
Monday, yes. And, because the whole document will have to be changed quite a bit, and we wanna get it to a point that's acceptable, there's no point sending it to the county commission, so.
right.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, in the minutes from last month, we said that the workshop was in December and that we would put it back on the agenda for January. Talking about the Powers Act, sorry.
Right, we just need to know when that.
Yeah, and we'll get you the exact date.
That'd be great, because I think several of us expressed an interest in going.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Okay, any other business come before the Rules Committee?
I'd like to talk a little bit. to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
Good.
Anybody can speak.
I just want to talk a little bit about the Tennessee Investment and Student Achievement System, which is the new school funding. What I'm gonna recommend, and I'll explain why I'm recommending, is that we get somebody from the state to come explain. I think really need, hopefully, we need to understand it. It's a little bit different than what we had in the past. We had what we call the EEP. In 2020, for example, Bedford County per pupil spending was $8,264. We were at the bottom of the South Central Core District. And of all the counties, there's 142 school districts funded by the counties in the state, and we were third from the bottom. Now, this TISA, Tennessee Investment and Student Achievement, goes in effect, I think, 23-24 school year, fiscal year. The state's gonna give 70% of funding, and whereas the
counties are gonna have to give 30%. I think what they just lump all the counties together and then ration out based on your ability to pay. And what that 30% is, some counties have to pay more, some less. But anyway, with all that said, we're gonna get a lot more money. Every student gets $6,860 in the base amount, but there's an add-on, and as it relates to economically disadvantaged, concentrated poverty, limited English, and unique learning needs. And for example, here in Bedford County, we got 13.6 that have limited English proficiency. So with that, we get another $2,608 due to all those categories. So it's on an individual student basis as opposed to a system. Now the county portion is not changing. And so bottom line is, we're going to get $10,059 per pupil. You compare that back to $8,264, we're going to be at $1,759. And in our South Central Core District, there'll be 10 systems below us. So we're making significant strides upward in the funding, yeah. Quite a bit. So it's been a good thing. Yeah, as I mentioned, the county's portion didn't go up, and neither had any other counties. They're going to, the state's going to give like a moratorium for a period. I think the talk is for 5 years, but who knows. But with that said, most of the counties in our little district, which includes counties like Hickman County, Wayne County, Murray County, Lewis, Perry, Coffee County, and Franklin, both counties, most of the counties give 30% more than the minimum that TISA requires. 30% more, it's average. But Bedford only gives, or funds 4% more than the minimum that TISA requires from the county. But they're gonna hold off on this, so, I would expect sometime when the state says, we go look to the counties and balance, you know, what you're giving, they may require Bedford County to pay more. And so with that, you know, how do you fund that? So tax increase, I just don't think it's a good issue. I think the real way to go about it is economic development, where we have more revenue in the county from, you know, business and homes and such, that, you know, we get more tax revenue, business, you know, just basically with economic development. But with that said, I think that's the way I'm reading all of this. I think it would really be good to have somebody from the state come explain it. Maybe the way I presented it is not correct. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully I'm not correct. But I do think we all need to understand it. So as we make decisions, if we get things from the school system, if we make decisions about business development, we understand the backdrop of funding education. Because I think, and I don't have Robert here, but I think education is the biggest portion of our budget.
Absolutely.
And that is the biggest, probably what, 2/3 of it? 2/3, so that's the big number, that's the big number. So I think we need to understand the new funding act. I would recommend that we do that. And that, so that's all I have to say.
Can I say something in regards to that?
Yes.
The County Mayor's Association, all 95 of us around the table, monitoring this closely. Most every county considers this a win with this new formula and how it's going to. Because so many of the counties like Bedford were economically disadvantaged, high Hispanic populations, disabilities, these things that the old formula didn't account for. So we're seeing money come in, that's true. The last thing we heard, and this has changed 100 times so it won't be accurate in the final, but you're right, that at the end of the day, the last thing I heard was that they're basically gonna land 30% to the counties. All the counties will be paying the 30%, but there will be some factor on your ability to pay and all.
Yeah.
But there's at least a 3 to 5 year moratorium before the counties will be asked to adjust beyond what they currently get, which you're saying those things. I'm just saying to you, those are the things that we're hearing. But as soon as we, and the Mayor's Association put a lot of pressure on the state to tell us what that number is, because I need to know that number this year, not 3 years into it and gotta find $5 billion that we've never been spending there in 12 months. We need, between now and however long the moratorium goes, to continue to model and make sure that we have set aside or a path to pick those funds up without having to necessarily go to property tax to try to correct that issue. So all the county, I just say this to say, all the counties across the state of Tennessee are looking at this. I think most people think this is a win for education with the
Right,
new
it is.
formula, but there is some heartburn downstream, and it's not clear yet what they've not, I'm not aware that numbers have been given per county, what you're looking at your increase at yet, but we got lobbyists working on that.
Yeah. Well, I got a couple of things to say. One, salary wise, we're pretty much on an average of teacher salaries, professional salaries in the schools. The way, since we have been so low in our school funding, the way we've achieved that, make it balance, is we don't have the staff that other systems, maybe like in all the South Central 4 districts. And then looking at the TASER, comes up with a per pupil physical capacity. And if you take that and subtract what we're giving locally in 2020, our physical capacity is 2,037 in school year 2019, 2020. We were giving 1,506, that's a variance of $530. If you multiply that by the number of students, we had 8,768. We have an unfavorable variance, 4,651,000.
I knew it was about 5 million, that's why I threw that number out too.
So what I'm trying to say is, historically, we've had a big difference in what we should be giving or what we're capable of giving with the state savings we give. And whether it's right or not, I don't know, but that's what the state numbers are. And so that's a big variance. So I think we need to understand it as quickly as we can, so whatever we gotta do, last thing we want is like they did with the jailers, last minute, say, oh, by the way, I need that. You don't need that.
Yeah, 5 should be the high end for Bedford on what we think we know today. But we're hoping that there's gonna be some relief because of economic disadvantage, because of high. So we don't really, again, we sit here with not knowing the number, but we would be remiss not to know in the back of our mind, we could be having to close the gap on $5 million.
Yeah, and I think you need somebody from the state to explain it, because I've been reading through this.
Oh, yeah,
Would you be able to do that, would maybe before this committee or the commission, have someone make a presentation from either TASER or
Yeah.
this board
We
to
reached out,
explain the
yeah.
financing on this, what the mayor's saying?
Yeah.
It needs to be the whole commission.
Well, we don't want to circumvent the superintendent here.
Oh, no, but this
For
is,
some reason, I haven't heard the superintendent mentioned.
this is all
Yeah,
about money.
Before it goes here.
This is all about money,
But
that's
again,
not our job.
But they come to us for money, and I just think we need to understand.
Absolutely, we do.
Rules of the game. All right, now, can I ask you this? I think we have planned for the last couple of years a new elementary school. I'd like for the superintendent to let us know some progress on that at the next available time, if she would just let us know where we are on that, because we've moved down the line on this long enough, and we need to.
She'll have a quarterly thing coming up here soon on
She
South
will,
Carolina.
and monthly at finance, she's reporting, and you should see it in your minutes.
And
Give
we'll
us
ask
an
her,
update.
we'll ask her at finance.
Yeah,
to give us
and
a
she's
little
been,
update
so you
on
should catch it there too, but yes, she does.
Quarterly, she'll have all that too.
And I'm sure she'd be happy to come before the commission,
Sure.
at any time that you guys would want to ask specific questions.
We don't have anything, the school board makes policy. We don't make, all we do is approve money. So all we care about is how much money we have to spend, and that's our responsibility, it's solely our responsibility.
Well, let me just lay one more thing down, and we'll definitely set up with it. UT does some projections, and they do population projections. And from 2020, 2040, which is 20 years, it looks like we're probably gonna have 1,000 more kids if things stay the way they project. Obviously, that can change, who knows what might happen, but that's the way they got it projected now. But even with half of that, I wouldn't forget, that's a lot of.
How did you come up with that number? How did you,
It just take the population they project, or that is in 2020, and what they project in 2040, and you take the history of percentage of people to the school age of total population, and then apply that to the population increase, that gives you basically numbers. So,
It's a guess, but I believe
It's a
that.
guess.
You're just coming off the school board, she's just coming off the school board as well, but I think we've been trending 100+ kids a year new to the system anyway, haven't you? Just on what we know today. So if you use that fuzzy math, you're gonna get over 1,000 in 20 years anyway. You're talking about
I thought
2,000.
1,000 thought it was lower.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. So,
Anyhow,
We're about 20 years now, let's move
Yeah,
on.
but 20 years,
That's where about
Yeah.
down to here.
20 years from now, I'm gonna be talking to you from the.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
We're not so worried about it, think about it today and plan for it.
Okay, is any other comments,
Just like
questions?
John said, I mean, we're laying the foundation now for 40 years down the road, and if we do it right, if we lay that foundation good for people who come in behind us, you know.
You know, whether we agree on things or not, we at least need to know the lay of the land.
We pretty much always support education in this county.
absolutely.
We've never put education on the back burner that I recall, ever. The next thing I got, might need to go as well, I think I'm supposed to go to Tennessee Back Road Heritage meeting, supper at, you know, be there at 6, I don't think so. But anyhow, Charlene Woodson finally got a petition in, it says, "We, the undersigned residents of the 4th District of Bedford County, do petition request the Bedford County Commission approve naming the bridge spanning the Duck River on Sims Road in memory of Jimmy Woodson." I just want to let you know, she'll come next month and talk, and if you got any questions for her, she does have a petition signed, and the number of people there, we'll go through it, we will here, and we'll just discuss it, whatever it takes, and then we'll push it on to the commission, and it'll be voted on the full commission floor whenever we get it out of the which hopefully will probably be January. Okay, that's just sort of announced. Any other announcements? Being none, so motion to adjourn. Okay, so moved.
Y'all have a happy Thanksgiving.
No, we have a lot to be thankful for this morning.
All right. Mr. Max is gonna have a word prayer for us.
Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to come before you, Lord. Thank you for this group of people, Lord, that help serve our community. Lord, I pray that you keep your hand over this meeting. I pray that you give us a spirit of wisdom. Lord, thank you again for all your many blessings and for those that have served and protected our great country. Lord, I pray that you continue to guide us and lead us, Lord, and it's in your precious and holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. Next roll call, Sylvia is out. I think she had a speaking engagement that she was committed to. So, next on the agenda will be the approval of the 2018-2022 law enforcement committee minutes. It's a pleasure. A motion to approve, second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next will be the reports, animal control.
Chief is not able to check out, but I believe
Her
her
report
information is in there, and certainly she can come back, or you can individually DM if you have a specific question. We did some adjusting down there structural wise several months ago, and I think it's really made a difference in the amount of complaints we're getting and maybe the transactions, you might say, in and out of there. And it's not a perfect system under the best of circumstances, but it really was not, it was kind of hatched wrong from the beginning. So several months ago, we did a facelift, and I think it's making a big difference for us.
Any other questions about animal control concerns? Next will be the sheriff's department's report. Sheriff's son's here.
Okay, John, I know you've got this top report, which, once again, almost 2,000 miles a day on patrol, 779 warrants served, 198 arrests. I'm not gonna get off on anything in the jail because I have the jail administrator, Ron Prince, with me. And he has that information as well as Linda's on the work crews. In October, this past October, the Drug Task Force report, the investigations, which some are still ongoing, 4 firearms have been seized, $513 in illegal drug proceeds, marijuana, crystal meth, obviously is one of the drugs that have been taken, 222 doses to control prescription medications, most which are suspected to be fake pharmaceuticals containing fentanyl. 28 grams of heroin / fentanyl were confiscated, and a total of 14 defendants. That's just in October. In the courtrooms and court, actually there was 1 week that they didn't hold court. So that being said, in October, there were 34 court sessions. On the docket, 1,190 people were on the docket. And in the month of October, a total of 5,421 people came through the justice center. And I do have something else to bring up, but before I do that, I think I'll let Ronald give you his report.
So for the month of October, we had a total, or an average total of 289 inmates incarcerated. Our highest total was 305, and our lowest total was 271. We had a total of 273 work crews go out. Total of inmates on that work crews are 441, and they worked for a total of 168 hours, saving the county $35,208.
Don't you want to say something?
I did. I just thank you.
Amen.
We, as you know, the administrator, Ron, and his lieutenant, it's not just containing people and keeping them while they're serving their debts to society, but we also have really gotten into here, and I say William, again, I give the credit to Ron Prince and his staff of education, of different programs. Obviously, we got some working at Tyson Foods and a lot of things going on now. We're not naive enough to think that we're gonna get to each and every one. But if we can get to some of them, that's better than none, because right now, they really, most of them don't have a lot of, I hate to say hope, but anyway, they don't, sometimes they just go right back into where they come out. And it's just a cycle, and that's gonna continue to some, I mean, it's not gonna change. But we do try to help the ones that want help. Are we gonna have glitches? Yeah, I'm expecting that any time, but, it's gonna happen. That's just part of this business. Now, with that being said, we are wanting to get tablets into the jail system. Now, this is not an ordinary tablet like you and I might go and buy at something. I don't know if there's a Circuit City anymore, but Walmart, whatever. I'm behind times, you know. And the reason I'm bringing this up, we've got to enter a 3-year contract, which would mean it has to go in front of the county commission, but I want to bring it up to this committee first. I will say it's no money, no charge for the county or the sheriff's department, and actually there'll be some income to come in off of them. But it just seems like it's limitless to what we can do with these things, and we have complete control. We're not responsible if they get torn up, anything like that. But again, without getting into it too deep before maybe we go in front of the county commission, I just wanted basically to get y'all's recommendation to do that.
And if I can, they had brought me down and talked to me a little bit about the program and the process. And a lot of let me make sure I'm saying the right thing, and you backfill what I'm saying, but there's some real educational opportunities for these folks with this idle time. I know all the way back, this is how old I am, back to the 80s when the inmates used to be in the old rock jail. When I went to jailer school, they talked about, if you don't have some carrot stick to help manage and people, you take everything away from them, you do nothing with them, you have no leverage whenever they decide to act up or act out. So there's a huge education piece here. I feel like there's a lot of enrichment opportunities, even beyond maybe what we're thinking about today with that concept. But I also say that I really think it would be a tool for the system to help encourage people to follow the rules or to, because
That's a big part of it.
you can say that they're in a room and they can't get out. Well, that's a neat idea. They're in the room, they can't get out. But when you get in, they're going to get you. Or they're going to disrupt or tear up or throw up or whatever they're going to do. And so I think there's multiple reasons to think about why, if nothing else, the educational and the tool that it would assist our correctional officers in having order and discipline within their system. And then now, what would you say are the other big things that jump out as an administrator that you're dealing with every day?
Yes, sir. Like you said, it would work on it would cut down on people trying to tear up the cells because of whatever reason. Because they have 24 hours a day to sit there and think of what they can do to make their time go by. So sometimes they'll draw on the walls, sometimes they'll tear up loading and stuff. And so hopefully with this, along with the education part of it, it will limit the amount of destruction that they cause.
It's just like a child, if you misbehave, we're gonna take it. And it can be turned off without even touching it.
And I got a couple of questions. One, I know you say it's no cost to the county, but somewhere, somebody's paying for something. Where is the
Service charge to them.
It's a service charge to the inmate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they have to accept that or not accept it?
Yes, sir.
Or they want to take that on again when they get out of jail?
Yes, sir.
Well, somebody's got to arrange for it. The payment comes monthly or whatever.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so if
Like
they
their
don't stay
family's got to put
current,
their money on their books in
Okay.
order for them to
commissary
get
or something.
Yes, sir.
And in that too, it's educational, and is that education directed by somebody? I mean, we just don't throw out math problems and they get on an iPad. I mean, I know Linda works with the juveniles.
I'm
And we've
not
got
sure how his work, but most of these come with progressive programs so that they they have to reach a level before they get to the next level. And I'm sure Ronnie and maybe Chris too have looked at, you know, somebody to monitor and help them with some stuff, so. There's so many things out there that can be plugged into these things, if nothing else, just basic math skills and
Yeah, any
reading
education they get is
skills.
gonna be better than nothing at all.
And they can prep for their GED. For
Yes.
those that don't
Yes.
have it, so there's some real
And
reasons to
and-
think about this.
Some of our cartridges are foreign language cartridges too,
Good point.
so, you know,
And we
whatever
can,
you wanna put in them.
we can have somebody here that can answer any and all questions
Yes,
at the county commission meeting, if you want.
But it's a subscription, the inmate or their family or what have you pay for that. And if they don't pay like they're supposed to, the system's cut off, has nothing to do with us. But if you guys need to intercede because somebody's acting out or they acted some kind of way or whatever, you have controls and so does the back-end company that's monitoring everything that's going on with these devices. Is that right?
yes, sir.
And they install everything that would be required hardware-wise for their system to work in your facility.
Yes, sir. So, some companies require that they run off of our Wi-Fi. This company is gonna come in, put in their own stuff, and that way it's capable of running.
Right. And our juvenile, that was
We're
weird.
in the zone from the schools too.
Let me ask you this, will they be able, I know a lot of them read books,
Yes, sir, they can read books off their tablet.
the approved books and stuff. And so that makes it safer for y'all. You don't have to go through the books to make sure contraband's not coming in and stuff.
Yes, sir, our plan is to cut the books out completely, because they'll be able to purchase those off of the tablets. Yes, sir.
And there'll be, y'all, or you have the option to allow them to watch some movies and stuff, but you can rate those movies and say, hey, you're not gonna watch that kind of movie.
PJ
or
or
what
G
have
or
you.
whatever.
And so, again, you know, you gotta give them a little bit of
Based
enrichment
on-
and.
Based on their behavior.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying, but it really becomes a tool for you that I was surprised that you don't have any leverage at the moment, the way the system is set up. So I think there's a value in that piece of it, especially when it comes to us.
Yes, sir. Right now, we have nothing to keep them, nothing to keep them in line and stuff.
No incentive. Yeah,
Yeah, they break off the sprinkler, okay, what are you gonna do to them? I'm in jail anyway.
yeah.
There's
Or we, sorry. We charge them with vandalism, but, you know.
They already in there,
They're already
so
there.
so give me 6 more months, because I got 8 years.
I agree. Let me, before, ma'am. So, you know, I mean, I have a few more questions too. I mean, I hear everything that you're saying, and I agree with you, on your points. I guess, you know, the financial piece is one concern, and we've kind of addressed that. You know, another concern for me is, will these tablets be locked down from an internet use standpoint? It sounds like they may. But you know, I'm kind of old school too. I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to rehabilitate the inmates and set them on the right path, without a doubt. But I also don't want to make it a playground for you. So, I think that, you know, giving them a toy to use is not something that I would go for. But giving them a tool to use is something that I would consider.
Correctional facilities are using, this is correction based, so we're not the only ones in the country. I mean, this isn't something they come dreamed up out of the system, so. But again, yeah, people have mixed feelings. There are people that, there ain't no question, there's people in the community that feel like they shouldn't have anything.
Yeah.
Not even a blanket. But guys, there's gonna be some reasonable expectation, for the level of what that is. But if we have a chance to help with their education and help our folks, I certainly think it's worth getting in front of the commission to answer their questions and vote on it.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree, to an extent. I just, you know, I just want to make sure that it is a tool that they would use.
Let me ask one other question. I know they said there's a 3-year contract. Does Robert, I think you and Robert have to agree on this contract. Has that been read?
Robert is gonna work with them, and we had talked about, in advance that that he's gonna need to evaluate that and look at it, but what triggers the commission actually acts, and it's not just being a purchasing decision, not a mayor decision, but a purchasing decision, is the fact that it's more than a one-year contract. So because it's a 3-year contract, it's got to come before you, not that it shouldn't, not that you can't know about it if you want to, but what particularly puts it in your venue is the fact that it's 3 years. But yes, Robert will review that, he'll work with them, it has to meet all the state standards and requirements. Is there any other counties in the state of Tennessee that's using the particular company that you're looking at?
Lauren.
Yes,
I
sir.
recommend,
Okay. And so, and how
I mean,
many,
there's
they
other
have,
good
two
success?
that's close.
Are they successful so far in Warren County? Are they?
Ronald, I think, has talked to it, I haven't.
Well, my understanding is that they love the talents. One, is helping the inmates, but two, they're not tearing up the facility like they was before they didn't have anything at all. So it's saving their county a little bit of money on that part.
I'm good. I mean, if they're tearing up the facility, that seems like another issue altogether. I mean, that the tablet's not gonna cure somebody tearing up the facility, so.
well, I know time, it's an
Yeah.
interesting thing. Yeah, that's an interesting component.
I had one more thing, with the tablet thing also, if they misbehave, that's one of those things where we can say, hey, you're misbehaving, you're gonna lose your access to the tablet for so many days or months or whatever. So just if they continue to tear stuff up, we can restrict their, use of things like that.
And I assume they have to act in a certain manner in order to even get the tablet to start with, right?
Yeah, they can be
We're not
shown
gonna
how.
hand every inmate a tablet, right?
I'm sorry?
Are we gonna hand every inmate that comes in a tablet?
Yes, sir, everyone over can get a tablet.
Well, that's if they buy the subscription and pay,
Yeah.
right? If they don't get it, then who's gonna pay for their subscription?
No, there's, the stuff that's on there that, the education stuff's gonna be free. But like the movies and stuff like that, that's gonna have to come with a cost, and their family's gonna have to pay for that. If not, they just don't get those items.
That sounds like a teacher dealing with an unruly student, you gotta have to.
Exactly. Exactly.
Is that really true?
Hey,
Chuck, how you feel about that?
I didn't have any.
She took my Hot Wheels up, that's what she did, so, that's okay. But anyway, so,
Matchbox cars.
so, yeah, I appreciate that. So, by the time commission comes, assuming this body wants to send it on the commission even without a recommendation, we will get a representative and Robert will be prepared to, weigh in on your concerns about the contract and making sure it's meeting all the state requirements and be able to answer you guys' questions, unless this body doesn't, or wants to study it a month. Again, you're gonna have to have that information, so, but they believe they can have it available to you by the commission, that's right? Have your stuff ready to go by then.
So we're not under a 30-day notice, do it or lose it or anything like
No,
that?
no,
Okay.
whatever you need. I mean, if we can get it in next month, we'll have them here. If you wanna wait another month, that's up to you.
Chairman, I make a motion that we study it for 30 days, and then, give it a good, honest look. I personally just don't feel comfortable pushing it through to the commission unless we've done our homework first. So that's my.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
I don't wanna say defer or what was it, defer 30 days on study.
Give us 30 days to take a look at it, take an honest look at it.
Okay.
So you're gonna reach to the sheriff's office staff for your questions and information, right? So we make sure we know who's doing what.
Okay.
Right.
And then you said Robert will.
Yeah, he'll take care of it, because that's just a
Right.
mechanical, technical component, it's not, I don't think this is good language, we'll just make sure it's all the same.
We get it like in a packet, we get our packet the next month.
No, well, by next month, you've got, I assume that you want to reach to these guys and have information between now and next month. You don't wanna wait and have it all dumped to you 30 days from now, do you? And stand here, sit here in front of everybody
That gives you a week,
and study.
basically a week,
Yeah.
you know.
These guys will be available to you, you can call them tomorrow and start conversate with them and figure out what they're interested in having, and your rep or you will provide them the information they're looking for, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Would it be permissible that we send Suzanne our questions and then she get it insured and then they get that
We
back?
can do that if you want.
Instead of us, everybody sending you things.
Sure, if you want to send questions to our office, we'd be happy to send them over there, but I mean, the sheriff's well.
Because, I mean, you know, if I send an email today and they send one next week, Tuesday
You'll
or
ask the
Thursday,
same
whatever,
question
then you'll answer the same question twice, and then if we have a day like we had today, we don't know if we can get there. And that ain't our fault, you know, so, yeah.
I'm also, I think that most likely the counties will probably already have something put together. I'm sure they'd have some sort of presentation put together.
That information should be out there.
So if they do, you can send that tonight and start the process. I would just wanna take an honest look at it, because I'm sure that some of the concerns that I'm thinking and we're talking about are probably already addressed. Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably an FAQ document somewhere that answers all of these concerns or questions.
You can send us the link to
Yeah.
my office of
Yeah,
the standard information that's out there for this company, and then, look at that and then ask the question you want. If you want to send it back to us, we'll send it to them. We can be the middleman if you want, but we'll also make sure you have their correct information, and you can simply start then asking, maybe more grounded questions. Is that
If
what
we
you're
get that,
saying?
if we get that link, then like I said, that may have answered a lot of the questions.
Or it may help you to have other questions.
Yeah.
So we're gonna defer then a month, this will be back on the agenda next month, and doesn't mean you don't wanna defer again, but you'll have opportunity 30 days from now to act on it if you want, or defer, or ask more questions.
Yes, I think
Is
that's
we in agreement? Everybody understand the agreement? Suzanne, you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion in a second.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye. All right, next, Sheriff, did you have anything else? Is that-
No, that's all, I mean,
Next is EMA report.
I don't have anything to add to the report, however, I'm gonna talk about a couple things. I was unable to be at the last meeting last month, because I was under the weather. I think there was a question about our new building, I was gonna address that some. We've been working with, our IT department and through them, getting our communications ready for the move down there. I think we're making good progress in that, Josh, you agree?
Yes, sir.
We're also addressing, we have to have painting done and carpets cleaned. I assume or expect that to start pretty quick. We're working with our maintenance people on some quotes. We're narrowing that down. Also, some fencing that needs to be done in the process, hopefully by the end of this week, to talk to finance and get the bid process out for that. Of course, I think that takes 2 weeks.
Somewhere in there.
I don't know I'm not sure what their schedule is, how long it needs to run, but going ahead and get that out. We've already moved some of our non-day-to-day items to the building. Been cleaning up, tossing out and things like that, so we have quite a bit to go through and move. We're using it as a clean-out process too, and so when we move, we'll be ready to rock and roll. We'll be moving in the front part into our offices, so we'll be able to function from that. We need to get some of these things done before us moving in for security reasons, for equipment and things like that. So I wanted to say something about that. Also, this last week, we took possession of a new UTV side-by-side. We won a grant through Firehouse Subs and was gracious enough to get a UTV to help us on special events. We have to get one for TEMA every time we go to Bell Buckle, Moon Pie Festival, things like that. Now we'll have our own to be able to do what we want to. Also, it'll help with our hazmat group or we're out on a missing persons call or something like that, to transport equipment. So we're happy to get that, and so we'll see that out in the near future with the special event coming your way. Was glad to be able this past Saturday night. Commissioner Yaki invited us down to speak at Ross Community Center, and I will say that we enjoyed that. Thank you, Commissioner, for letting us do that. And I'll put it out there. I'm not sure, you might check with her, and she may tell you how good the program was. I know that we had a little covered dish supper down there, and it was good. But the rest of you, if you have communities or something, or some type of function, and want us to come out and talk about something, we're all about doing that, and we'd be glad to. Just reach out to us and see what we can do. And I think that's all I got. If there's any other questions?
Back to the transitioning to the new facility, of course, it was a pre-existing facility that the state was using, but the county owned it. And so where there's functional space, they're obviously using that as is. There are some modifications that are associated with an emergency operations center, obviously, that there will be adjustments being made. But one of the first things they're staring down the barrel of is we gotta get security around the building, as you can understand with emergency operations, you've got to have security. So that's why that is going on, and that's gonna be a little bit of a ticket item, but we do have some funds associated with selling another building that can help that, so we don't impact our other revenues. And then we're on a path to then get the facility totally functioning, but there may have opportunity to transition before it's completely complete. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll be able to move in and function before our PLC issues are addressed. We have a secondary place to be able to use, which is actually the business complex. If we needed to until we get things done there at the new building. So yes, we'll be able to move in and function. Like the mayor said, it's security, and I've talked to Mark about it too. It's like, man, sit down and talk to him about finding some places that we could stash some stuff, maybe if we had to, until we could get that completed. But we do have some equipment that we cannot leave outside unattended. So also I was going to add to the UTV thing, when we won the grant, that was a full cost paid by Firehouse Subs. There was no percentage we had to come up with or anything like that. That was a complete payout by them. So we're happy about that.
That's awesome. We'll come to the county, what you just sent us the bill. Yeah, right.
Well, congratulations.
Any other questions for you, Mike? Hearing none, juvenile,
She's here, but her report.
the report's enclosed, probation.
Yeah, the report, really the only thing I have to add, other than what's on the report, is we have transitioned to ISOMs. It's been pretty smooth transition, other than learning something new, so employees, it's the exact same thing, but you gotta look here instead of there, so you gotta retrain your muscle memory. So we are dealing with that. There are a few little things that we're asking for, enhancements into the ISOM system. Been working with Martin, which is the developer of the software, and he's consistently making a few tweaks here and there for us. So we are getting some progress on that. But otherwise,
You might want to tell them what ISOMs is. I guess you would call it correctional or
well,
court software.
it's what we share it with the jail and the sheriff's office. It's what is it called? Sheriff's Office Maintenance System is what it's, management system is what it stands for. And probation is just a little module off of, the jail for booking and the sheriff's office for, their warrants and so forth. We all share the system. I'm just a little module over here and kind of have our own processes through the system. But everything's went pretty smooth. I've been through a lot of system upgrades in my previous career. This one, I felt like went really good. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's where the data is all shared by all y'all.
Correct.
And you have access to certain parts, or the sheriff's department has, the jail has access to certain parts. So you don't have a set of names over here and over here and over here, it's all linked together.
So for instance, when they book someone in and create a file,
Yeah,
and that person goes to court and pleads to probation, what we do is just create our record off of what they put in. So we have the address, the date of birth, the social security, all of that pictures that we now have a record, and we can access their stuff. I believe y'all can access ours. So it's really nice to be able to, our three departments, be able to access each other's information. It's very important.
And there's some options for the court system to have some access or modules if they wanted them in ISOMs.
Yeah, the management system has quite a few more options like CAD, and it has juvenile court systems. There's all kinds of facilities can share this program.
So there's some efficiency opportunities for the future, but we've kind of got to grow into this because the old system of ISOMs, or whatever they called it, was really stood independent, right? Everybody had their own module and they weren't necessarily, was your information sharing with the sheriff's office in the old?
It was, but it wasn't as clean, and it didn't have as many functions as the new one has. There's better reporting that I can pull out of the new system. Overall, you can get more information and data from this one.
any further questions for probation?
Thanks, sir.
Now we need a motion to approve the report as presented. Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Other reports for information only, have anything, anything? No? New business, which, rules and legislative committee's already talked about.
That's in your commission rules, this is straight out of the rule book, supposedly, that the commission has. And so we're just dropping this on to make sure that, that you comply with that. In the future, the body may choose to tweak this or the dates or how that works. Under current rules that are approved by the county commission, this is straight out of it.
Any announcements? We've got the Christmas parade coming up on December 3rd, right? December 3rd, 4 o'clock. And just so you know, all the emergency departments, city and county, anybody we've all met and talked about, it's a big planning organization and planning for us to get this, because we've got this city intact. Nobody gets across the bridge, and nobody gets on Madison Street, so we know what it does to show, but it is a big event, and since they kind of redone the roads around the square, we have to make sure that people pulling long trailers can get around the square without running upon the sidewalk and tearing roads up, so there'll be some new rules, and hopefully nobody has to back up.
Right.
We have looked at all those avenues, and of course, we have to have a emergency operation plan. What happens if something goes south on where our town's cut in half, so it's not just say we're gonna have a Christmas party. There's a lot of work goes into it, and then all those people that put it together and make it function. And I'll say, I don't know who did the Veterans Parade videotaping, but that's a big help in emergency services, when you can look and see where the parade is, where it ends, and kind of get our time, and I thought that was a good idea, it worked out pretty well.
I'm sorry, you coordinated that stuff, I'm not sure you guys.
All right, anything else?
No, I just, I don't wanna say this a lot to water it down, but, I personally appreciate everybody that's represented in this report. I know I probably have a lot to say about the tablet situation, but overall, I tell you, we wouldn't be Bedford County without our law enforcement, so certainly, I appreciate it.
Move to adjourn.
Courthouse and Property Committee. We have everyone present. Gavin? It's been a long time since we've had everyone present. Okay, everybody will bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings you've given us. Please help us to make the right decisions for the county. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of October 18th Courthouse and Property Committee minutes. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, next is planning and zoning. I don't think we have a report.
We don't, Bruce is out of town for a
Okay.
couple of weeks.
Okay.
and Jim's in it.
Anybody have any questions regarding planning and zoning? Maybe?
Now, did we get a report last month from the planning and zoning?
I don't think we usually do.
Okay. I should see, maybe reach out to him to make sure we're getting that continuous
Um,
report. I think he said he was gonna get us that
He
report.
typically does, but, Mayor,
Second, I'm so sorry.
can you make sure that Chris gets us a report?
We were just talking about that, yeah. We'll send an email, make sure that that's, coming to the right slot. It may be coming to somewhere that I didn't get it cycled in. but
Okay.
We'll find
I
out,
got
we'll figure it out.
Okay, and then next is codes report, and I believe I just handed that out to you all. If any other commissioners want to copy, there's some copies here.
I know you haven't had time to do my report, I didn't get it in the packet, sorry about
Okay.
that. Color coding is also off a little bit, but to just review real quick, building permit sale, purchases have dropped off just slightly this month. We were at what I call a, I don't know, 2021 was that oversurge of building. We're still above the 5-year trend of what it's been trending over time, but if you have any questions after the report, just let me know. What has dropped is the number of permits issued. With that, the archive fee is going to drop because that's based on per permit issue, but overall, the building revenue is up. And then we've also, in my note on the front, we've recently got a little bit extra time to focus on school tax collections. We have sent over collections to the attorney, and that hasn't been done in several years, and that's just due to staffing shortage over the past few years and not having enough permitting and work that we've had. So hopefully we'll get all caught up and no more comes to that schools facilities taxes for those collections.
I appreciate this report, it's very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
This is another one of those situations where we were able to finally split code zoning and planning. It used to be all lumped together, including IT, when I first took office, and IT finally got segregated out. And now we've been able to segregate out planning and zoning separate from code, which is a monster of its own. And so we're starting to now reap some of the benefits of having the independence. Now, they're still cross-communicating and whatever they need to do, for sure, but this has given us some opportunities to put some structures in place to get where we want to go, some things that we would kind of just tread water
Right,
for a
and
long time.
we're just keeping up, so now that the house.
So one of the advantages to the third floor.
But it pays for itself.
Absolutely.
In the long run,
Oh, yeah.
it pays for itself. What we've always said about planning and zoning is
Absolutely.
they need to pay for themselves.
Does anybody have any questions for? Okay, IT department.
So, you have my report, and I put several projects on there. Other departments have mentioned the ISOM software and how it's been deployed. We have several initiatives going on right now with law enforcement. We have several projects that we're working on right now with law enforcement, in addition to some of the administrative offices. The planning and zoning department has a software that they're going to be deploying as well, and we're going to be involved in that and maintaining some of the data that's being used on older systems. So we're going to have to update some older systems and maintain some data for a little while they transition into their new software. We're working to convert a legacy system that the sheriff's office is using right now to NCIC. We're looking at moving them over to something called E-Agent. There's several different initiatives that we're working on with the sheriff's office. And they had mentioned to us about a tablet situation or some kind of entertainment measure, something to occupy the inmates' time while they were being incarcerated there during their time. There were several different companies, I know that they've done their due diligence and research and homework to look through more than just one option on that. We're fully, we fully want to support whatever the sheriff's office and law enforcement need to do. And what makes it nice for us is when we can have something that's segregated, separated away from our systems, so that it doesn't interfere with the data and the information that we're trying to keep safe and protect. So we feel like that's not a bad offer, especially if you can offset the cost, because if we do take on the burden of adding something like that on our network, it does cost money, and it does take personnel to manage those connections as well. Somebody has to, update the tablets, secure them. There's a whole lot that goes into that, because we have to separate out those networks away from what we have. So our systems, we try to protect those and guard those. The ISOM's transition has been really smooth. The system is running on a virtual machine, which really kind of makes things a lot more cost-effective for us. From that standpoint, allows us to back it up a lot easier. Those systems are also used in criminal cases as well, to document criminal cases for the CID, the detectives there. So also for the EMS, we're heavily involved with them as well, their systems. So we're constantly moving around between departments. And also when we're not, we had 100 tickets this month. That's less than normal for us. And that's good, because that gives us the opportunity, our department, the opportunity to work on new projects. So we do have to continue to maintain these systems. That's one thing that we have to do. It does require people. We can automate only so much, but we have to consider cybersecurity. That does take people, and it does take efforts on our part, continuous. It does not stop. When something happens, somebody needs a password reset. We have somebody dedicated that. When we are not doing that, we're still updating systems, making improvements along the way, trying to find places where we can cut costs, and also working on new projects, new initiatives like what we're doing in the courtroom in there, which is really close to being complete. There's some sound coming out of the speakers, microphones do work when you tap on them, but we're in the very final stage. It's about 95% complete. We have one more meeting with the AV company that came to do that installation, and that should wrap that up for us. So, what kind of questions I have for you? You want to talk about the charter outage? Anybody want to talk about? No, we don't. But it's back online. We got a message at about 4:30 that all those that our phone lines were back on. We didn't lose internet. We have our phone system separate from our internet service so that we don't lose both at the same time.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Fire department.
It was quiet today. You have my report enclosed tonight. I don't have anything to add to that. You have questions about it?
I had just one question. I know in the past y'all gotten some funding from firehouse subs too. Or do y'all do anything this year?
Well, no, we didn't apply.
Oh, you did?
What, and Shanna's not here, but what we tried to do is work through Shanna. So everybody's not competing for the same grant. And if you'll remember, we got one from our workers' comp.
Yeah.
We got a grant from them, there's only certain items that they will allow you to get, and we got one pretty best to put on the medics when they go to these calls. And y'all do know how that's getting. So they did fund that, and then Mark Clinton got it the year before, so we're kind of trying to not everybody go after the same dollars and make somebody suffer from, or knock us all out.
I just didn't know if you both did.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they only gave
And
one.
in the past, we probably received over $500,000 from them.
Yeah.
They totally got us in what we call e-hydraulics, that's battery operating per school. Whereas used to be hooking up the hose to the fire truck and working that way, they're all battery powered. When we were military, we replaced all of our units with that, so. And there's only certain things that they'll allow you to purchase through that grant as well. And David got it this year, and David and I talked about it. And so trying not to compete for the same dollars.
Right, makes sense.
And then, one other, I don't know if y'all noticed, about 3 weeks ago, the big black cloud in the sky, a beautiful day. It was a, large, tank fire. I have to say, I was very proud of the guys that we had. We were flowing somewhere between 7 and 800 gallons of water a minute on that tank. With just tankers, there's no fire hoses hooked in, so we were moving a lot of water. Our exposure to the products and stuff was kept at a minimum. So if we did have a tank rupture, we were gonna lose very minimal equipment and trucks and hopefully personnel. So we're very proud of the guys anyway. It takes a lot of pieces to that puzzle. Get the water, getting the tankers there, and getting the water dumped and back to the ladder truck. You couldn't climb up the side of the tank. This tank was being demoed, and we didn't know what type of structural parts had been taken off of it. So we were having to be very careful as to where we put our water and how much water went in there, because we didn't want it to all spill on the ground. So they worked out. Very fortunate that they are going to take the tank down and replace it. So it was food waste. It wasn't oil or anything like that.
And if I can say that for you, I think this plays right into your training where you're having to
Yes.
figure out how you manage water, because when you're out in the county, you don't necessarily have water resources like you would in the city, and so the whole tanker system and the pumpers and all the things they do, and I don't know, we're an expert on that, but they train for that. You strategically have things placed to try to minimize close-up times in getting those resources there, and so this was an opportunity for all your hard work to actually show.
It showed and paid off, and it wasn't ISO in the course, this was the actual thing. And we just went through, 2 weeks ago, the ISO grading, they came down and did all our paperwork. So we're hoping to go our ISO grade again, so.
Which helps with homeowner insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, which, like I said, that pays back to your homeowners when that rate goes down. It sounded very favorable, but we won't know probably for another 12 months.
Anybody have any other questions for Mark?
No, I'd just like to say one thing, Mark. I was at somewhere today, and they kudos were going to your group about a barn fire that you had the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And they appreciated the quick response and how they took care of that. So I just wanted to say that. I want to put that out there. Everywhere you go, you hear compliments about them. They do a good job. So
I think we're very blessed to have the ones we have because of the professionalism. I worked in Williamson County, and surprisingly in Williamson, it's an all-volunteer county. And you can see the big difference from having a paid fire department with quality volunteers versus only volunteers up there. It's a stark contrast, so I do appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing because it shows.
And I to elaborate just a little bit, and I don't know everybody's ready to go hear all this talk, but the city had the mini storage facility on Bethany Lane, and they were calling us to come help them when we had the big barn fire. And this barn was, if you're familiar with the banks over in the Normandy area, they're big farmers. Got all kinds of planters, I don't know what all the equipment is and stuff, but we saved a lot of their equipment. That lost about 10 round bells a day, got that put out. So, yeah, they were very thankful, and there again, we were moving a lot of water. And if you've ever tried to fight a hay bale fire, man, you spray water on it, it just don't go out.
Okay, 911.
This is report.
Yeah. Reports in. GIS.
Not a whole lot to add to the written report unless there's any questions. The Veterans Day Parade, the time I wrote this up, I was envisioning that I would just go and take pictures of the Veterans Day Parade, which I did, but then Mike, said something about, it'd be really great if we could get some video, get some live streaming. And so I ended up having my phone on a tripod so I could just let that run while I was taking pictures. And so we had
video and photos from the Veterans Day Parade, which Mike really seemed to appreciate. But other than that, does anybody have any questions?
And if I could make a comment on that, of course, GIS and media is strong background. He's continued to evolve in GIS as we had envisioned when we brought him on. And then now with the planning and zoning being separated, where we can have some segregation and put some emphasis on some things, Blake has also stepped up. He has an IT background himself anyway, and we're really starting to now give a little bit of the benefit of the vision. You know, Bedford in some ways is pretty far behind GIS-wise compared to some of the other counties. But we got on the journey a few years ago, and it's starting to now make all this come together like it should, which is what the beauty of GIS is basically where we're sharing data across a platform that we can all agree on, might be a way to say it.
And that's been a big part of what you know, Blake and I have been working on over the past, you know, few months, is getting that digital version of the zoning map. There had been a digital version of the zoning map several years ago, but it had not been maintained. And we needed to have it, number one, updated, but number two, put it into a form that would integrate with some new software that they're using up in their department. And so that was what, you know, we've been doing with help from a consultant, was, you know, is getting kind of the final touches placed on that. And, you know, we're learning more and more. And the thing that I mentioned, where Blake and I are both going to be participating in a webinar a little later this month that could have impact in the future. It has to do with some of the procedures, some of which Blake has been working with already, for taking GIS maps and putting them in a form, if it's something that's public information that's you know, that can be shared with the citizens. How do you do that? How do you set it up in a form to where somebody can call it up on the web and look at it? And he's already, you know, been doing that, a little bit of that with the zoning map. But this webinar, which just happened to pop up, is on that topic. And so he and I are both going to try and get a little more familiar with that system and how that works.
By January, we'll be able to locate every resident of Bedford County on the map.
we don't know where all of them are. We don't have a map. So that might be a tall order. But again, it continues to make it make sense. And as we go and grow as leaders and we're making predictions and studying the future, the more real-time, latest quality information that we can all have in front of us, the stronger our decisions can be going forward. And that's another critical component as to why GIS has got to continue to evolve in Bedford, and we're doing that. So
and the software is very powerful, but sometimes the hang-up comes with getting, how do you get the data? You know, how do you get, you know, people to share the data with you? How do you get a utility company to, you know, give you the data when they don't want to do it in an electronic form, you know, or things like that. But the software is very powerful. If you can get the data, put in.
Historically, because we didn't have a GIS department and we needed such a particular project, we hired a third-party company to come in, and sure enough, they did that project just like we asked them to. But the format they worked in 8 years ago is not the format we use today. So now we've got an old map that's not, you could kind of argue that we wouldn't have to start from zero, but it's almost like starting from zero. And why we've had to have consultants come in to help us to try to get everything on the same platform. Then we can start moving the data around. So this has been a monster, and it's difficult to get your head around the back end where these guys are working. And once we get it right, the front end, even on a website, you can just click and say, hey, I want to see.
Yeah, we've got they have a web-based component that John and I have been studying. And so not only can you present the data, you can present the data in such a beautiful manner.
Yeah.
And it's going to help with planning and zoning and codes going forward, because people are
going
going to be able to tie it all together. But even the general public's going to be able to get a lot.
Presentations at the commission meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, all this stuff. So finally, hopefully things are about to pop and make all this make sense. And a lot of people put in a lot of effort in the last 4 years to get us going there. So we're making progress.
I just have a question for maintenance. property assessor, didn't they have a GIS person over there that
Yes.
handles that? Does this tie in, or
It's,
are they doing something different?
yeah,
than
no, in
you
fact,
guys?
we rely on him to send us updated information about the parcel lines, you know.
They're
He's
transferring
been,
data
he's
to
been a
us.
good, he's been a
We're
good
only
resource.
allowed to share parcel data
Yeah.
from them because they're on a state machine. So so they have some stuff they can share and some stuff that they
Right.
can't share.
Right.
But you can get that like from the state. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
and flood
That's
data.
kind of what I, you know, what I
We
get
haven't
into.
been in a good position to accept it because they're current and up in the proper formats, and now we're getting there, where we can actually take that data and do something significant with it. But they've been interactive with us and certainly share.
Yeah.
Right.
We're getting ready
Yeah,
to start
yeah,
working
yeah.
on like 100, 500-year floodplain, because just like Mark was talking about, we can lower people's flood insurance. So we have a path that we're going, if you see the webpage, our webpage, it's already a bunch of things added on the right side, and they'll get filled in, so. John and I are gonna tie it all in.
No hell or high water.
Yes, sir.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah.
I got
Mm.
paper.
Thank you. Well, John, me and John can do anything. Me and John went to Murphy's World, let me tell you. We had a ball.
You went to meeting.
It was a meeting, but we did the drive there and the drive back.
Do y'all have any other questions for John? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve all the reports.
Motion.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, and does anybody have any old business?
I do, if you guys want to, I want to give you just a quick update. And some of the new commissioners may have not really realized maybe where we are on the journey of courthouse and property. 4 years ago, before I was actually the mayor, the commission was on a journey to look at properties that maybe weren't necessary or were not needed anymore, and y'all transitioned some properties and did some things. When I came onto the scene, some of the things that was going on was the need to sell maybe the old gymnasium. It was falling in on itself. We need to either spend money on it and use it, or we need to get rid of it. We've done that. We temporarily moved surplus over to the old workhouse. And there had been some interest potentially from the city at one point about that property, and we worked with them to see, but in the end, it just doesn't fit what they were trying to do. The next conversation that had come out and thought was that we would go ahead and then get this property set or reset, whatever term you would be most comfortable with, to say to get it all cleaned up, ready to go. If we had an opportunity to offload it to the right kind of buyer for the right kind of price, again, the commission would have to decide that. That's not something that I decide. We want to be ready. So I'm just updating you that we're now finally reaching the point where we're literally resetting that location where if there is an opportunity, and there are some chatter from some folks that are looking around that might want to make a run at it with the county at some point. So we're in the process of doing that. So you can see things going on over there, big bins and stuff. And of course, we have to follow the state rules about what we get rid of and how we destroy and those things, and we're doing that. But if you see that, that's what's going on there. Then our next stop, and again, this has been on the vision and the journey of the commission even prior to my arrival, is the next stop really would be the old jail. Not the historic jail, the old rock jail, where I actually worked and had inmates in there back in a while. But the old jail it's really, if you want to use the term decommissioned, it's already been determined that it's uninhabitable, which is why we had to build a facility. But we need to go through and have harvested out of there all the things that can be salvaged or done away with, because one, it will lower the cost to destroy the building, or to take the building down and dispose of it. If we do those things on the front end, then the cost to dispose of it won't be as much. It has to go to a special place in the landfill if you just basically went there with a bulldozer today and just knocked it down like it is. But if we go in there and we potentially give the public an opportunity to bid on maybe taking all the metal out of it, or the wiring out of it, or whatever, all the things that we can do to scavenge it before we actually destroy it and remove it, that's gonna save us in where and how we dispose of it, and also potentially make some money for the commission. So we've got to figure out how that would need to be bid or made known to the public if they were interested. But we've got that project to do right behind there, then really sets us up. And you guys have already been working on this again with the prior commission, if you're new to us here, with the jail and actually where juvenile is. And that area has got to be done away with as well. It's really, deplorable in a lot of spots, but
And
we're
once
making.
once we get to that point, we did a previous study, the last commission, we had some committee members that met, and we did a pretty in-depth study with, with juvenile services and with Nicole Cashin and with Charles Rich and, the different components within juvenile to kind of go over what was the true cost of everything, and we have all that information.
And the pros and cons.
And the pros and cons of keeping them here and housing them in our juvenile facility or sending them out, and the cost of that versus keeping them here. And so, I've got all that data, and I'll share that with you whenever we get to that point so that we can make a decision.
Yeah, and what I would say to you, whether we continue to house juveniles, and I think there's a lot of pros about that, there are some cons about that, the commission makes that decision, and the mayor doesn't do that. But the current facility and the conditions in which that facility is all the pieces, they have sewer issues every day, literally have to send people out, do things, there's other concerns with that facility. We cannot continue long-term to operate there, is all I'm saying now. If you want to build a facility, if you want to try to transition to another facility, early on, we looked at the possibility of moving them to the workhouse, and I'm now talking about getting it set up where we can transition it. The state says no on that. We're allowed to keep current folks, with different standards than if we were to move to a new facility or another facility. Then we would have to do upgrades in how we do things, the amount of space they have, daylight in the hallway. There was all kinds of interesting things that when you go to build a facility. And there are ways to mitigate costs when you do a facility. It doesn't have to be, but what I'm saying is where, because this facility has been there so long and grandfathered, it's not that it's unsafe. There's not life safety issues there, but it is in very poor condition and shape. So was the sheriff's office. It was all part of, again, the plan why the sheriff's office was moved to the Youth Justice Center, which made sense too. But I'm just really referring to because y'all are the property committee, and some of us have kind of known what was going on before now, but I want to bring up to speed the new ones, and if you have any questions about it. But that's what's going on. The vision was that we would get the workhouse where we could offload it if we wanted to. If we decided there was another purpose for it, then the commission certainly could get behind that. I think everybody was in agreement that the current old jail, not the historic jail, but the old jail, has got to come down. And so, but again, there's some things that we can do that will render us some cost savings in doing that. And so we're right behind what we're doing. We plan to do that. And then behind that, though, we've got to be prepared as a commission to debate, decide, and make a decision about where we go with juvenile services, detention particularly. We can't get out of the service business, and some would argue we can't get out of the detention business either. But that'll be a debate that the commission in the end would make the decision. So, does that catch us up? And you're thinking back, having sat here for an awful long time, have I missed anything as it relates to property, or is there anything that you guys want to ask about that?
So Rhonda and I are still working on the current list.
I didn't hear.
Rhonda and I are working on
Oh,
the
about
current-
what properties
the current
we do
property,
have?
because
Yeah,
it's
there
not-
were
it's
some
not totally
properties.
accurate, so I'm
Yeah,
trying
the
to
commission
figure
got rid of some properties,
We
offloaded
got
some.
rid of most everything before I
But
left.
like the new on the list is like, not the jail and the justice center, like, there's a lot of things that have been put on that it happens, it's the last thing.
Yeah, you need to keep your list current, I'm sure she.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for the new commissioners, if you hadn't heard or were tracking, particularly at the time about this, I think the commission, with a lot of wisdom, certainly recognized the value of, at least at this time, hanging on to the properties where the old jail is and these things because of where we are and what could happen. But we can't deal with the liability and the other challenges that come with not managing the properties. And so really all I'm talking to you about here is just the steps and phases of managing what was set in motion even before I was the mayor.
Any idea what proceeds can come out of that workhouse, Chad, what you're looking to use that revenue for?
No identity for the revenue if we can get it. What the proceeds would be, I'm not sure. I would assume, again, if we get far enough along on it, and we'll share with you, and my office does have this information, I'll be happy to send it out to you. I just don't recall the number. But I assume that the starting point, at least of the conversation, would be what the tax appraisal of it is, even though we don't pay property on it, or pay tax on it because of the county, it's assessed. The assessor's office gives a value to what the market value of that
Sure.
property should be.
More a question of, because there's sharks in the water when you start having, revenue in
Absolutely.
your budget, so,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and the commission at the time, let's just pretend that we fast forward and we have a client and people are good with it. What I've seen happen, what I would expect would happen with the commission, in the journey or the vote to sell it, there would also be a disclaimer of where the revenue would go. Okay, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that, we've seen that in the past, and if nothing else, back to our rainy day fund, because we have had to dip from there, and there were some things that we said as we could deal with them, we would put money back, and so I would argue with you, so to speak, at this point, by default, it would go back to those funds. But if the commission has a particular project or a particular way they would want to deal with those funds, you certainly have the power to do that. But it would seem like, to me, the default would be that it would go back to those funds that we dipped from to do some of the things that we need to do not to impact the taxpayer. Otherwise, if it drops into the general fund, then as a general fund, then it's open for what are we gonna do with it, and it's one-time money. And I know you know a lot about that, and all of you here would understand it, but, recurring revenue is an interesting situation for us. But one-time revenue is really something we have to watch close, because it's, you know, it's sort of like the guy was telling me the other day that, in Bedford County, they bought a bunch of vehicles, with ARP funds, but they don't have revenue now to put fuel in those vehicles, so they got them, and they didn't have to pay for them. So it was really more just a conversation about, you know, we gotta look at the big picture and play the long game, and I think we're doing that, and I think the commission clearly did that before I was around, but the last 4 years, we really tried to make sure we were talking about what we're doing today, but what we're trying to get to, trying to tie all that together for you tonight, talking about ISOMs, and talking about GIS, and separating departments out, you know, it didn't get in shape overnight, we can't fix it overnight. Money is always required to be a part of the solution. You don't have to be the only solution. Everywhere we can do something without money, we're not doing it. But where we do have to have some money to do these things, and just like renovating the third floor was part of the thing, we had to wait till we had funds, and ARP funds actually helped us be able to get that done. And so these projects, probably the courthouse renovation stuff, probably could not have gotten finished if it hadn't been for those ARP funds opening opportunities, so we didn't have to impact the property tax rate. Yeah. And so, but those funds are not reoccurring, so no more. But they were done in a way that it was one-time expenses associated with it too. So we are conscious of that.
So I do wanna say, when that was built, you know, funds were limited back then too.
Yeah. Now what you're talking about was built,
The workhouse.
Oh, yeah.
The jail, the juvenile
Yeah.
center,
Oh, yeah.
everything that we did,
oh yeah,
you know, is all.
yeah,
you know,
Clay Parker.
Shoes,
yeah.
shoestrings, you know, that's what we had, and that's the budget we had, so.
Yeah, and that's
So
why
I want
they.
to commend those prior to us that have done this foundation of what we've got. Now it's starting to get a little older, and
Right, yeah, we need a plan and a model for where we're going.
Exactly.
But yeah, they did a lot with a little, but you can only do so much with so little for so long until you have to look, then where do we go from here? So, and again, we're trying to make sure you have all the information, you know where the big plans are, and, you know, and if we wanna change course, or we find out something we didn't know, then, you know, we drop back and revisit it. But that's a kind of an update on what's going on with the building.
Yeah, so the property that the old jail, the old sheriff's department, all that sits on, so after destruction, if that goes through, what is the plan for that particular property?
Yeah, and so and Linda has been around a long time, she's been around a long time to talk about these. I'm gonna throw out a generic term early on that was called green space. By that I mean get it back to kind of natural, because as you know, with development and everything, really this courthouse lawn is the only green space on the square now. And as you can see, we're doing some work on that to try to improve it. But I think we thought we definitely don't want to lose that ground, and the historic jail that's there, we've got some grant money to do some improvements, and I think there's a vision that if we can continue to get some grant money, we can get that cleaned up and laid out in a way that the public could actually, it could be a tourist spot, not something where we have to have somebody there would be, you know, technology there. You push a button and a hologram of the mayor would drop down or something and tell you all about the jail and when I worked there or something. But there's ways to do things that are unattended, but are interesting places for people to want to come to. And the historic jail is certainly one of those. We were just in there the other day. Do you want to tell them how freaked out you were?
Listen.
She didn't recall.
No, it was before COVID when this all started. Judy will remember, we started on the workhouse and the historical jail, long before COVID, and then we shut down for 2 years. When I went in the rock jail, I thought I was gonna have a stroke. This was last year. There were lawnmowers, weed eaters, I can't, whatever you wanted was in there, none of it worked. There was tons of boxes of hospital records and jail records. Anyway, when I asked the mayor to let me in there the other day, everything's gone. Carol Roberts has gotten all records that are retrievable. So it's ready for somebody to start on each end with a pressure washer and just funnel all that mess out to the front, and somehow we'll catch it. So it's at a point that it can be cleaned now.
And we
I have
did get a
to
grant
commend
to
the
put a new
sheriff.
roof on that
Yeah.
historic jail. And we have plans to do some painting and some things that would make it presentable.
And we found the
for-
beds.
For the future.
We found the old beds. I was so
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, she says, what's that? I said, that's a bed, come on. And the chains are still hanging from the wall that hook those beds. And like I said, I worked there a long time ago, back in the 80s, whenever they were still in there.
But
And I can
Mayor,
tell you stories
remember,
another time.
part of that area, and this is 50 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, was if we ever ran out of space from the annex, we'd have a place to build some more office space if we needed to.
Yeah, so, you
And
know,
then-
And then it was also discussed with the Main Street Marketplace, and we talked about it, and we talked about using that for green space, so there's been a lot of different
And
discussions.
events, the
Yeah.
merchants on the
Festival-
square hate the
yeah,
events
the
that are going
festival
on.
area could migrate a little closer down to the main drag from having to be here all the time. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, there was wisdom here before I ever got here, thinking that direction. Don't let the property go.
No,
But let's get the property reset, kind of the same thing we're talking about really over in the old workhouse, so that we're flexible for what then comes at us. Hey, if we need it for this, it's set and ready to go. But that jail, we're trying to keep it locked and stuff, but people are pilfering around in there, somebody's gonna get hurt, something happens. Like I said, the state says it's deplorable and you can't use it, that's why we had to get out of it. And so, it makes sense that we continue the journey and take it down, you know, and then we decide what you wanna do with the space after that, but we can certainly make green space no matter what, and parking, and all kinds of things, and festival area, you know, for whenever they wanna have things, and we can control that, the body can help decide what you want your permitting to look like for it and those things, so you have a lot of opportunities with that
Chris
space
has a lot of ideas.
for going forward.
And where is the surplus gonna transition to if we're looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question or point, because when we had the old jail, and the roof was falling in, the windows were out of it, they were either gonna have to spend some money on it, or we're gonna find somewhere else to put it. And so when we figured out that the justice, or the juvenile could not be,
At the old gym.
yeah, in the workhouse, when we decided that couldn't happen there, that triggered us then to go ahead and get the sale of the gym. And so then we moved the stuff that we had into that building, because we own it, it's sitting there, and it doesn't matter about its functionality, because it's not really a public access place. But, and this was my thought, and other people had this thought as well, but I think about surplus, there was things in the old gymnasium surplus when I was still the director of EMS. So it's sort of like a closet, the bigger the closet, the more you put in before you clean the closet. So my vision, and several other people, including finance, and some of them, was that we really ought to have surplus if we had our druthers kind of be a smaller space where we can kind of control, it's coming in, we give it 30, 60, 90 days, we send it out, and not just hold and hoard stuff. And that building has already lended itself to hoard and hold. And so again, we need to get all that under control, but what we hoped we could do, and I think we can do this, with reasonable amount of money, is pretend we could sell that facility. We've got it reset and we could offload it. We could build a small pole barn, really in the back of the finance department, on the grass area. And that could be surplus over there. Because again, I don't envision that we want to hold too much too long anyway. And so I don't know what the dollar amount would be, and we'd have to make sure we're meeting codes and the zoning was permissible and those things. But the county owns all that property, and so.
Yeah, and for Drew's information, the guy who's doing the surplus part-time, which we used to, the mayor's office did it when somebody could.
Was responsible for it, I'm not sure about did it.
His salary last year was like $15,000 or $20,000, but he pulled in like over $100,000. So We would,
By
we
surplus.
would have the money hypothetically to pay.
Yeah, so it's paying for itself, and then if we were to take just a few of the proceeds, assuming we got some reasonable amount for the building, we clearly could throw up, because it wouldn't really have to have insulation and a lot of fancy wiring and that stuff, where it literally, in my mind, the simple thinking is, you got roll-up doors on one end, roll-up doors on the other end, stuff comes in one end, goes out the other end, so to speak, but, it'd be a little more complicated than that, but it's not, it wouldn't be a high-tech, fancy building to simply rest that stuff for 30, 60, 90 days and move it on to where it goes. Because by the time we surplus it, it's junk. I mean, most everything else, every chance the departments have been indoctrinated way before now, that anything we can repurpose, we typically do that among ourselves before we ever send it to surplus. But every now and then something might drop to surplus and one of us say, hey, they got one of those and I'll take it. But most everything, just like the state of Tennessee, I discourage you from buying surplus from the state of Tennessee. When Tennessee puts it in surplus, it's done, okay? And we used to have to do that, and we've gotten away from that, and I'm grateful for that. And they were getting away from it before I got here, and we've really done a good job with the support of the commission to not make that our first choice. Now, not that we're not looking for, if they come up with something great, we'll pick it up, but my experience over and over and over since 1989 is 99.9999% of the time, it's unusable by that time. So, we're not going out of business, and so, I think we have to think about the future. So, you got it?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Any questions from anyone? As far as new business, we have two things I know of. One is what all the other committees have already went over, that you need to send your nominations, by December 20th for any changes in standing committee membership. And the other new business, I believe, Mr. John Reed has something for us.
I just wanted to share with you tonight, and we'll roll back to the old building over there, and we moved to our beautiful facility. We lost about 800 square foot. This is an actual blueprint that you have in front of you in the office now. And thankful, Mayor Graham saw that we need a little more room, so he did give me those two other rooms on the side. Thank you for that. But we have, over here is now where the flats are, and with the big building boom, and new subdivisions, we haven't had a boom like this in a long time. And my flat cabinets are getting full, almost full. I have nowhere to put the big tall ones anymore.
Did you ever look into the scanning like we talked about to save space?
Right now, it's a law that has to be in paper form. See, on those, yes. We talked about it at the code meeting last week, but right now, there still has to be.
So I was thinking that last time we talked, there was some other counties that were doing that.
We're scanning them in the system when you pull them off the internet and look at them. As far as we have to.
But you also have to keep the main,
We have to keep the main copy. But what I'm presenting to you is on the other side of the wall is that open space that nobody's in. Rhonda has a space in the back that we can use as a conference room, use it for the tax, what you call the equalization board. Josh has his IT stuff back here that he can work on. There's office space back here we don't need. But if we could open up a door in this workroom that has a lock on it, we could put 3 double flat cabinets against this wall. I also could get a flat copier that we do not have that we do need and put it in that room. This door would allow us to lock. Nobody can come in our office. It gives Josh access to his stuff. It gives Rhonda access to her stuff and mine access to our stuff. It's also very important that we're the only office in that building that has one door in and out, which is a safety issue. That's one thing that scares my girls to death because we've all talked about active shooters and stuff like that. This would like give us a second door to get out of. Right now, the only thing we've got to do if something happens is to go in the vault area, and we have to go in the back and get down behind the shelves. That's the only place we have to go. So this would give us a second way in and out, and Rhonda and Josh could use it at any time, and we will still be locked here at this door.
Do you have it in your budget to get the flat cabinets and the copier, or is
Not at this time. This is
What the
something
cost
Mr.
is?
Hooker come to me and asked if there was any needs, and We talked about that and the safety issues.
Yeah, where this all started is when I first got elected as commissioner, I thought it was important to go out and talk to the different department heads. And I'm still making that plan and going around, but as I talked to the ladies in Mr. Reed's office, the number one thing that kept coming up was the security issue. And that to me was the main reason why this is. It's one way in, one way out. So during a fire incident or during any type of security incident, it really limits the way that they can get in and out. So that was kind of where this started. And so I asked Mr. Reed to come tonight because I think this is definitely something, it is an unused office currently. It is being used by, and some different uses, but this particular plan wouldn't change that, but would fix the ability for him to have the second entrance and then also the ability to expand into his storage.
I'm gonna ask the mayor a question, because I can't recall, and maybe you can, and maybe Linda can, I'm not sure, maybe Mark. When this was first done, excuse me, did we discuss this being a security problem? Was it, I mean, I don't remember that coming up, and I don't remember why we didn't see that. I mean, do you remember it?
At the time, there was some plans for other offices to move
Right.
into that. I do have a question, Johnny, if we do let you expand in there, how much time does that buy us before you run out of space again?
Oh, if I can get those flat cabinets down that wall there, we're talking 30, 40 years down the road.
Okay.
And there may be some
You hadn't been there
opportunities.
that long, and now we're out of space on there all the way, because you were short of space to start with.
Right.
But, you know, like I said, I didn't want to buy just 5 years of storage, and then we're right back where
I
we
know,
started.
I was saying, we had been long since we finished this,
Yeah.
that's why I was like, what
Yeah.
did we do wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flat area and the vault area was never big enough.
And do you know the cost of these things?
They're about $10,000 a piece, but you don't have to buy them all.
What the cabinets, each cabinet is?
Yes, and you just buy them one at a time, because one will last a long
And
time.
you're saying you need 3 of them?
Well, I can get by with one at the rest of the time.
And we can work with them on capital projects,
Right.
and, tag to get some of that, and I can, work with him too. There may be even another option, to give you actually a little more space and change that functionality. Now, as far as the safety, when Scott Johnson was the EMA director, I mean, they were supposed to evaluate that building. I don't
Yeah, that's
remember
what
them
I-
coming to me
that's
telling me
what I
that I had a safety issue,
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm happy to help figure this out for you,
Yeah.
but whatever they wanna do is okay too, so.
Right now, just basically adding a door there with a locked door would be a big help. And that would also get us into that room with 3 offices still being functional.
Yeah, but let me ask you this,
Yes.
so you want to come over here?
Yes.
So if we were to open this up and give you this
Do you
space,
have any idea?
then it would leave this without having to bother you, and still make sure that you
Be
can.
about $2,000.
This is
Who I've talked to.
Change this wall?
Be up or down based
wall,
on the
you
wall.
should open the door here.
I don't think the door is an excessive cost.
Access to it.
I think the plans would be something he would put in his budget.
Because I don't think she's
Plans
gonna have
that,
that.
I'm more worried about the security issue than that.
But again, I need to double check with him, they come over here for the other, so that's what I'm saying, but I didn't, no, but I didn't know, so.
But that's something.
So this would be your space. So they're making, so I probably can help you.
Just wanted to throw it out there.
What is the wishes of the committee? Y'all wanna look at this for 30 days, come back?
Yeah, I think what we can do is let the mayor and Mr. Reed spend time doing this, and so I just.
I think we have a solution, but we'll come back and let you know what we come up with. We certainly want to make
Just
sure.
all I ask is that we can address that second exit. I think that would be the main thing for your.
You still have it here, I think this is the space for you. I don't know what you got on that wall, you have to go back and look at it, but we're talking about
It's just a wall there.
Okay, the door, you see what I'm saying? Then you have that whole, you can even here, for some reason, or some point. And then they wouldn't be touched, it wouldn't be violating anything.
Right.
If you wanted to come in
Not
and go
listed
here.
in the-
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like that you two are gonna talk about it, you're gonna let us know next month, and if we need to do anything, then let us know.
Yeah, we
That's
can
okay.
resolve it.
Also, can you find out the price of that flat copier, just so we can have an idea for the future, or do you already know?
They're 12 to 16,000, depending on how advanced you want to get.
Now, did you say copier, or are you talking about a place to put your?
That's
Plat.
that's a plat copy, that will copy a full-size plat.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and do we, and you don't wanna come across to us, but in our, planning, we have some ability to duplicate large prints as well, right? Again, we don't need to be sharing, I'm just saying, but I think we have one of some kind over here on this side of the house, if.
Like, I mean, if you ever need some, I can go over there.
Yeah, but you.
I scanned something for him until he
gets.
gets his own,
Yeah.
they're handy, today's time.
We need to
I believe that
ultimately
already happened.
figure out how to scan his records, because again, the next generation of COVID or pandemic, one of the values, and make sure I'm right when I say this, Johnny, but is that if they're scanned, even though he has to hold these records and physically has them, it keeps people from physically coming up here to get standard information. And they still gotta have Johnny, and they still gotta have their stuff, but, and that number at one point was 100 and something thousand to scan our current books or something.
Like 116, I think,
I was thinking it was
116,000.
something like that, so.
Now
We may find a grant that would help us to do that. These are really working on multiple issues at
As
the
long
same
as they
time.
can do it in-house and not
It
like
is,
this,
no,
yeah, cause you know the state.
They would come to the office and that would all be done in-house.
Yeah, and we looked at it potentially, I mean, he's asked about it before,
Yeah, I
and
remember
we've looked at it,
something.
but we weren't in a position at the time to do it. And so, but that we may very well in the next budget year and on the journey that we're moving toward, have an opportunity to help him do that, because, and that's really becoming the standard. Aren't most
Right.
places where, that's just another form of preserving a record, but it's also an access for the public without having to be there. So again, every way we can, make transparency available, I think we should explore trying to do that, but we can't spend money we don't have.
And the main thing on that also is it goes back and picks up all the deed book indexes, picks all the old, from 1807 forward to about 1988. It would capture all them on digital, so that if something were to happen to the building or whatever, then we'd have a great backup.
I know Commissioner Thomas had a question or something to comment.
We might want to check with the code, she might have the plans for that building,
Okay.
and I don't think we ever come up with the original architect drawings on it. I know when I worked construction, Johnny Deason and them, I worked for them, and we did a lot, and the plans were there at that time, but between me being there and 40 years down the road, no matter, I don't know who ended up with the plans, but she might have some, but there was structural load issues that they had to solve in the reconstruction of the building. There were metal stud walls put up in certain places to meet fire codes, and the door had to meet fire codes, because it's 5/8 sheetrock, fire rated sheetrock, and there was a lot of things, and Jeff might remember a lot of that stuff, because he was very
I'll
involved.
make a phone call and see what I find, and I'll talk to Scott.
Yeah, and I think we have a workaround actually
Yeah.
already that would, but yeah, we'll certainly make sure we meet codes,
Yeah.
For it, but I think just talking to him, there's a couple of options here. And we'll get back to you guys and let you know what we
Sounds
think.
good. All right, do y'all have any other new business? Any announcements?
Motion to adjourn.